when you're a leader. This is meant to be more of an informal conversation where you hear from state and local chairs who get real about challenges and opportunities for building coalitions and consensus among existing and new Money Smart Week partner organizations, including campaign structure for growth, partner recruitment and engagement, programming best practices, and of course, what about the money? On the panel, we have Joanne Custer. She is an entrepreneur and business journalist. Joanne leverages a background in consumer economics and personal finance to develop products, content, and programs for organizations and businesses. Her work has appeared in major business media and is used by Fortune 500 companies. She is considered a thought leader in financial education, content, and strategy. Her success as a publisher led to helping startups and recognition as SBA's Home-Based Business Advocate of the Year. Serving Iowa Jumpstart Coalition encouraged her to bring Money Smart Week to Iowa, serve as a state coordinator, and help 14 regional planning teams across the state develop hundreds of events annually. She writes the Money Godmother blog and has authored numerous publications. She advocates for entrepreneurs, founded nonprofit groups, and speaks about entrepreneurship, saving, investing, and leaving a legacy. She received her BS from Iowa State University. On the panel, we also have Kelly Masters. She is the founder and chief dot connector of Graceful Communications and Michigan State Coordinator for Money Smart Week. She created Graceful Communications after working for CBS Radio in 2001 and recognized that standalone traditional mass broadcast media was insufficient in meeting her clients' requests for additional resources and creativity. She has served as the program manager for the United Way Service Learning Center for Southeast Michigan while employed by the United Way. In this capacity, she developed content and instructed K-12 educators on how to incorporate hands-on community services experiences into their school's curriculum. Kelly also served on the Michigan Community Service Commission for several years. She graduated from Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan, with degrees in public administration and policy and business marketing. We also have on the panel Melissa Liebert. She's a public relations professional with more than 15 years of experience in the corporate agency and nonprofit sectors. She's currently a project manager in public affairs and media relations at Country Financial, an insurance and financial service organization headquartered in Bloomington, Illinois. She manages community relation initiatives, including the Count on Country Financial Grant Program that gives back to nonprofits across the country, with grants surpassing $1 million and helping thousands of individuals and families obtain financial education. National programs like Money Smart Week are also a major focus for Melissa and include providing youth scholarships, hosting seminars, and creating a story time for kids that have grown to more than 75 locations in 4 states. Throughout her career, Melissa has earned several industry awards, including the International Association of Business Communicators, Chicago Bronze Quill, and Publicity Club of Chicago Silver Trumpet. She is a 2015 graduate of Leadership McLean County. Please welcome our panelists.
So are we ready to get going? We're ready to get going. We don't want to hear about us anymore. So first up on our docket, we are going to hear from Mel. Take us away.
Okay, so we chatted a little bit, as probably did all of our esteemed panelists before our session, and we all have very different perspectives, and we've all had very different experiences in Money Smart Week. But some of the stuff that we wanted to share with you today is really about some of like pulling back the curtain, so to speak. I know we have some chairs here and some first-time chairs, but so that's where our advice is geared more towards advice that took us a long time to come up with ourselves, mostly because we tried a lot of stuff and it didn't work. So we wanted to give you, this is the best of the best advice we have to offer. So the perspective I'm going to share with you today is about how, for me, our committee structure works in Bloomington Normal. So we are a very established campaign. We've had 2 chairs and now 3 They're all in this room. So Lori Peterson was our first chairperson. I was the second chairperson, and Pam Atkinson is our third chair. But what's great about Bloomington Normal, and my advice to you, if it's possible, is to set up your committee, surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, which is the best advice I was ever given and will give to you. We have a really awesome committee with chairs, and I feel like my role as the chairperson is really just to guide and keep things going. We have a fundraising committee, we have a curriculum committee, we have a Money Smart Kid committee, we have a kickoff committee, and we have a marketing committee. And they are all extremely well run by very capable people, and we host committee meetings and partner meetings at the same time. We do 1 to 1 hour and 15-minute meetings every other month at this point. And really, again, I'm there to provide direction, be the liaison, obviously, from our state chair, Karen Chan, and the Fed. But I see my role as giving them the tools they need to be successful and providing some guidance and direction to make Money Smart Week a success. So our structure that works best for us is very committee-based and committee-strong. But that's very different than the other two examples that you'll hear.
So Joanne, why don't you share with us how things are done in Iowa?
Okay, well, we're in a constant state of flux in Iowa. We started with one planning team, and now we have 14. So every year we add a couple. So we have new people coming on, and we have established planning teams. Each planning team has a chairperson and several committees. But we all operate out of one state structure. So we've grown organically, which is nice in one aspect, because then the new people can try the same things and they see what works. So we will roll out templates for everyone to use, but like the slide says, be a pyramid schemer. Now don't get the wrong idea about me. But really, truly, this is a pyramid scheme. What we're trying to do is get people excited, and then they do the work. Our goal in Iowa is the chairs don't do the work. And then if the program's really successful, there's very little work to do, because we've created one template and we're not spinning the wheel 14 times. Now, everybody puts their own spin on it, so everyone has a unique looking program. For example, Scout Night. Some people do Scout Night for 30 or 40 scouts. Some people do Scout Night for 200 scouts. They all get the same template. They all arrange it the same. The scouts get a badge. They get a certificate. And sometimes it's through the library. Sometimes it's through somebody like United Way. It works for us. So everybody can do their own unique spin, but we're really a pyramid scheme.
Well, and in Michigan, I came aboard as state chair about 3 years ago, 3 campaigns ago anyway. And as Alejo alluded to earlier, there had been some trials and tribulations with the Michigan campaign, primarily in Southeast Michigan. For those of you who understand the Michigan dynamics, the Detroit area is actually kind of a 5-county region. When we talk about Detroit, it's the city proper, but it's also that 5-county or 7-county area, depending on who you talk to. And when I came on as chair, I was like, you know what, but what about the other 6 million people in the state? What about them? And folks in the UP, the Upper Peninsula, and Northern Michigan were very pleased that that was one of my priorities. And that was, how do I grow Money Smart Week beyond Detroit or that Southeast Michigan area? And so Joanne is the one who told me, you are the Energizer Bunny. I didn't know that, but apparently that's what I am. And so I started thinking strategically. So where are there nodes of influence that I can plug into or exploit, whichever word you choose to use, And so plugging in with strategic nodes to help with the growth of the Money Smart Week campaign, taking it from something that was very focused on, very Detroit-centric, to something that could serve much more of our state and, the other 6 million residents of our state. So partnering with folks like the Financial Planning Association of Michigan, partnering with our Michigan State University Extension, for example, and a whole host of others. I think I'm getting ahead of myself, but, and then also focusing on statewide programs. What are some things that I can bring to Michigan, steal from other people, and things that could be rolled out statewide, which is where I brought Money Smart Kids Read to Michigan. And we started in year 1 with about 100 libraries across the state in 38 counties. Huge success for us, going from a campaign that had activity in about 15 counties to 38 counties, touching about 3,000 families just with that one program. And then this past year, expanding that to where we had 170 libraries involved in 51 counties. So partnering with folks like the Library of Michigan, Michigan State University Extension, Financial Planning Association, and then also, as I said in the former panel, is it is a little bit of eHarmony for financial literacy. So where do you have need and who can fill that need? And then as a local or state chairperson, how can you bridge that gap? How can you make that introduction? And the beauty of it is if you make the introduction, you put one hand in the hand of the other, content partner, meet hosting partner, and here are some promotional partners as well. That's where the magic happens, right? So even though I'm the Energizer Bunny, I'm a little bit of a pyramid schemer, and I also don't like to be the hoarder of tasks. So Melissa has the right model in terms of delegating to very competent leadership. And then creating unique models is something else that we've done. And I'm really right now kind of focusing on trying to plant teams. And I will tell you, one of my less than successful attempts at doing that was partnering with an institution who made that commitment, not taking into account that that institution is made up of individuals. And those individuals are going to have varying degrees of interest in taking on a leadership role. Not everyone is born to lead, right? So Khurram Imam, who is here, young, energetic, good ideas, he took on a leadership role, and he's with Michigan State University Extension, worked very well in his market. That doesn't always happen. So we're going to talk a little bit about identifying that leadership, and Joanne will say, well, I'm not going to steal her thunder. But how you identify those people is important as well. So those are just some of our suggestions on ways to achieve growth. And I hope we will have questions at the end, but we're going to move to the next topic area in our presentation, which comes to me, I believe. So the next bucket, if you will. So the first bucket that we wanted to share with you were different ways, different kind of building your infrastructure to set yourself up for successful growth of your campaign, whether you're managing a local campaign or you're somehow involved in a statewide campaign. It all comes down to local, right? It's true with schools and politics and Money Smart Week as well. But the next big bucket that's critical to having successful campaigns at whatever level is partner recruitment and engagement, right? Nothing happens without Money Smart Week partners. So you can be a chairperson, and that's kind of a fancy title, but if you're there all by yourself, you ain't going to get much done. So what are some strategies for partner recruitment and engagement? Well, we all agree you need to make it easy to be a partner. And then also think about what are your goals? Is your goal for growth to retain existing partners? Because here in Michigan, when I took over as chair, I had a lot of tired partners. They'd been doing it for 13 years, and they were whipped. So how do you retain those partners? How do you energize your campaign? Is your goal for continuity? And what are some ways that you can ensure continuity? Is it for growth, or is it to have many, many partners, or just a few? So your goal, how does the Energizer Bunny, prescribed by Joanne, I started looking at where did I have gaps in stakeholders, okay? I had quite a few financial institutions, not a strong faith-based component. Detroit is a very church-oriented city. How can we have more churches involved? So I started recruiting in categories. And financial industry outside of the banking industry. So I started focusing on sectors, if you will, and recruiting in sectors. And then I already alluded to pursuing strategic nodes, like the library system. I have a fabulous partnership now with the Library of Michigan that gives me direct conduit into our 450 public, community, and district libraries. That's why Money Smart Kids Read is so successful. It was just me kind of, organizing it and getting plugged in, but now they're a tremendous supporter. We have a conference call on Friday to roll out the next year of Money Smart Kids Read. The extension I already mentioned. Professional associations. I looked at, and y'all should do this, I looked at the Money Smart Week website, and I said, look at these national partners, the ALA and CFPB and financial planning. There's got to be a Michigan contingent of that. So I started stalking them. I did. And so I started making phone calls. I didn't get return calls. I'd call again. I'd find the next committee chair. And so the pro bono chair, I finally got through to those, Financial Planning Association. So look at those professional associations. You do have probably a Financial Planning Association in Michigan. The Michigan Credit Union League has been a huge supporter, and others. Michigan Bankers Association. So look at those associations, and also Step Up Communication, which goes to partner engagement and retention. And I'm going to turn it over to Mel.
So Bloomington Normal used to meet monthly, and we did that for a long time. Last year, we changed our meeting structure, and we moved to 4 meetings a campaign cycle. For us, we were sort of suffering from the same thing, just partner fatigue. I didn't feel like we needed to meet monthly, and we were just sort of draining people. Obviously you have to travel, you spend time out of the office, travel to a meeting, do the meeting, and then travel back to your office or pick your kids up from school or whatever it is. So we have streamlined that partner meeting schedule. Again, it works for us because we have really engaged partners. I don't want to take advantage of their time. We also give people the option to dial in, which isn't ideal, but again, if it keeps a partner engaged, I'm happy to offer that. And then we also, so a big change we made last year was the combination of committee meetings and partner meetings together. So if the curriculum committee would like to meet, you can use our partner meeting facility to do that. If you want to come half an hour into the meeting and just stay for the partner portion, that's fine. You don't have to participate in a committee meeting. But we had people coming to the partner meetings who weren't on committees, and they were really engaged partners. And this was an easy way to say, oh, we'll just sit into the curriculum meeting or sit into the marketing meeting, and then
pulled them in.
And then I'm like, oh, yeah,
I can do
be a
this.
part of that committee. So it helped with engagement and just lessening the load of the few really dedicated partners. Ended up being a win-win. And then I think the other thing I want to comment on is the importance of an agenda and meeting notes.
It seems so obvious.
It does. I will say, if you're a chairperson, it's annoying. I mean, I feel for you because I do it, and it is annoying. However, if you have a really committed partner who wants to be involved somehow but can't commit to a committee, but they attend partner meetings, you could take turns doing meeting notes. Again, in Bloomington Normal, we have a very simple template. So the agenda looks the same, relatively the same each time we meet, but the partner meeting minutes are included in the agenda. So if Joanne didn't make it to the October meeting, but I will see Joanne in December, Joanne has the meeting minutes with her agenda, she's good to go. So again, it's easy things you can do as a chairperson to keep your partners engaged. If they miss a meeting, it's not the end of the world. But also, it's a really simple way to be organized as a chairperson, but also give each committee head gives their own report. So I'm not reporting for them, I'm just taking a couple bullets. The deadlines are there, the partner meeting dates are there. It's just a very simple, easy way to stay connected. Because we're not meeting every month, and if you miss a meeting, I don't want you to sort of drift off. We have to find a way to keep people engaged. Next.
All right. We subscribe to a couple principles in Iowa. People like to be part of success. And if you make it so much fun, there's a fear of missing out. So we try to make it so easy to participate. It's very simple. There are 3 ways to be a partner in Iowa. You serve on a planning team, you are a sponsor, or you host events. It's very clear. And then basically our chair people of each planning team self-select. And they're the enthusiasm plus. They're the Energizer bunnies. They're the ones that come in and say, could we do this? And you say, you would make a good chairperson. Bob, no comments. We have one of our chairs here today. So we make it so easy, and we provide the agenda. We provide the templates. We provide the sponsors statewide for the programs. We provide the programs. So they can take and run with whatever they want to. Some places will bite off a lot. Some places do 1 or 2 things. It's okay. They do what they can feel, but we try to get that involvement. We try to keep it fresh, and we try not to be so rigid that if you've had a planning team for 4 or 5 years, you have to do the same thing that the brand new planning team is doing. So we have all sorts of ways of having the programs looked at by the committees. Some people have committees, some people don't on their planning teams. Some people, most people take notes and send those out, but they're all part of the bigger success, and I think that's what makes us go.
Mm-hmm. And if I may, because we're on schedule, so we have a little time to chat, I will say that contrary to how you do things, in Detroit, especially with the Detroit planning team, we do meet monthly. And because what I have found, and I say this at every meeting? Do I say it at every meeting? That the magic happens, even though the meeting starts at 9 a.m., I have kind of started brainwashing people. They need to be there by 8:30. Be there by 8:30, have a donut, have a cup of coffee, and network and talk to each other. And I literally walk up to people and say, hey, Mel, do you know Joanne? And put them together and say, you guys need to meet each other. Because I always say at every meeting, the magic happens when I'm not talking. When the formal meeting starts at 9 o'clock, we've got a full agenda, we have a lot of things to cover, we need to cover national updates and upcoming deadlines and promotional discussions and committee report outs, and we don't have committees in Michigan, by the way. This is just a vernacular thing, but if you're starting a team, I would say don't have committees. We have work teams in Michigan, because I find that a lot of committees don't do any work, right? Or members of those committees don't do work. So we have work teams in Michigan. Just a little bit of fun, and I tease my partners about that. But so we do meet monthly, and I think the greatest value in that is getting people who are, have a common commitment, a common mission-driven focus, and give them 30 minutes away from the phones and away from the emails to connect and share ideas, and we do have fun in Michigan as well. So there's no one way to run a successful campaign, whether you meet 4 times a campaign or you meet monthly, and there are things going on in Michigan all summer long. That's when I'm having my strategic conversations. That's when I'm stalking the Credit Union League or the Bankers Association or Extension, and I'm setting up those strategic partnerships. That's a year-round thing. Then we get our partners together starting in October so that they can begin thinking about what they're going to do this year and who they might want to partner with and what worked last year, what they'd like to embark on this year. And that's usually when I roll out the Kelly Has a Dream, because I have crazy ideas about doing big things. So whether it's monthly meetings, 4 times a year, we also, in Southeast Michigan, I provide a very detailed agenda. And on that agenda is actually kind of quasi-minutes, because I know what we're going to be covering so that people have contact names if they want to join a work team. It's right there on their agenda. When they walk away, they essentially have the minutes of what I knew was going to be covered. Then all I have to do after the meeting is tweak it for things that maybe weren't included before I have them sent out post-meeting.
Yeah, how many chairs are here, chair people? How many of you have asked your partners about your meeting schedule?
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I asked our partners, like, do you guys want to meet monthly? Are we cool every other month? Does this time, I like Tuesday afternoons, does that work for you guys? Even like a little quick survey monkey or just a little hand raise at partner meetings. Yeah, I mean, I think that you have to figure out what works best for you and your campaign. It may be meeting monthly. If we did a 30-minute networking thing, no one would come. Mostly because we all know each other. Bloomington Normal is it's a much obviously smaller town than working with Detroit Metro. So again, know your campaign, know what your partners are looking for or are in need of, and be sensitive to that. And if you can make adjustments, even if it's mid-campaign, try to be flexible and do that, because you may get the surge of enthusiasm or excitement that your campaign needs, and just by changing meeting times or bringing cookies, which we sometimes do snacks.
Or I bring Smarties, right? Because we all want to be money Smarties. So I know it's cheesy, but it gets people laughing. You all just laughed, right?
Fun.
A little element of levity. So to keep on schedule.
Well, I'd like to add to her point of the schedule and making adjustments. Sometimes things don't always go as planned. And it harkens back to an example where Alejo and I are standing in front of a brand new planning team. We're rolling it out as Money Smart Week Iowa. How basic was that? And there were 15 partners in the room, Quad Cities. And Alejo's got his slides prepared, and we're going through this brand new planning team. They all fairly know each other from 4 different cities. And somebody stands up in the room and says, "We are not calling this Money Smart Week Iowa. We are Quad Cities." And Alejo and I look at each other and go, uh-oh. Well, half of them are in Illinois. So we had to regroup and figure out how to bring them under the umbrella and how to keep them as part of the Money Smart Week team. There was a lot of enthusiasm there. But boy, they were set on Money Smart Week Quad Cities. We didn't have much choice. So anyway, adaptability, adjustments.
Yeah.
All right, so show me the money. Next topic, fundraising and Money Smart Week.
Oh, yes. Fundraising. First of all, how many have a way to handle sponsorships and money? Maybe about half of you. Just for protection, a fiscal agent is a great idea. A nonprofit, we use Jumpstart in Iowa. They write the checks, they handle the money, so we don't have to. And Jumpstart is not an entity like a single bank. That Bank of America won't play with Citi, won't play with Wells Fargo because they all want the same thing. Okay, so we have a fiscal agent. And I hesitate to say this too loudly, but it's not hard for us to raise money. The money comes fairly freely when we have an idea of what's in it for them. We raise about $50,000 to $60,000 a year for Iowa. And we pair our organizations with a project. So the next year is an easy ask. The Iowa Bankers Association has been doing our Money Smart Kid contest since the beginning. And I approached them and said, would you do the Money Smart Kid? That means giving the prize, having the committee, et cetera. And the community bankers come and said, what about us? Well, then now we have the poster contest.
We have a program for you too.
And then the credit union people now, they do the Money Smart Kids Read. And Wells Fargo does the Kite Fest, and Jumpstart does the geocache. And we have a variety of things so that they can kind of own the program and they feel good about the program. It's also easy for us to do that the next year. We also do a newspaper insert for our calendar of events. And that, they get their logo there. We give them, some benefits for doing that. That helps us with the money. Now, we do have some big shoes to fill with our promotional dollars being gone from the Fed and the printing that we were doing. And Are we getting shreds? No, we're not getting shreds.
You can purchase them through the online store.
So all those things that we're going to need, because people like those, we're going to have to figure out some sponsorships for those. So what we've done in Iowa now is, because Jumpstart is our fiscal agent, I tapped one of the key players of Jumpstart. He happens to be a financial planner, but he also teaches high school. He's going to do our fundraising for us. So he has a package of platinum sponsors, gold sponsors, bronze sponsors. And so we've kind of developed a little grid that we'll use with benefits that he can raise some money. So that kind of takes the next step. And I think that was my basic point that I wanted to make. Kelly, you were going to talk about we were talking about fundraising for different things, but then we have to get to who to ask and how to ask.
Right. So in Michigan, the whole fundraising endeavor for the Michigan campaign really just started the year before last. When I came to this very leadership conference 2 years ago, and I came back to Michigan, was I not on fire? My Michigan people, I was on fire. I said, they have this Money Smart Kids Read thing up in Wisconsin and out in Iowa. I want that in Michigan, and geocache, and I want to do that. Well, some of these things require underwriting support. So in Michigan, for those new partners, I had a conversation earlier today with a gal who said, you just crystallized Money Smart Week for me. So I'm just going to do a quick recap of that. I didn't think it was anything earth-shattering or newsworthy, but she seemed to think so. So you essentially have 4 legs of your stool, right? You have your content partners providing their expertise. You have your hosting partners who are willing to open up their venues and not charge you rentals. You have your promotional partners. And then that 4th leg of the stool, which is becoming, for those of us in the district, even more critical going into 2016, is that underwriting partner leg of the stool. And so we had never in Michigan had to do fundraising for general promotion, because we relied on, we were kind of spoiled, I guess, in the district to have access to the printed calendar booklets and the promotional materials and posters and all of that. Now, many of you are ahead of us because you haven't had that, and you've found ways to do it on your own, which we'll turn to Mel here in a minute. So my focus was, I want to do this Money Smart Kids Read program, or I want to do geocache. Well, how do you do that? And I identified, much like Joanne did, individual partners or organizations that had dollars that they wanted to commit to things that made sense to fulfill their own mission, right? And I think that's the being strategic about it. Don't ask anybody for money for things that aren't important to them. So in our case, the Michigan Credit Union League stepped up and they underwrote our Money Smart Kids Read program in year 1. They loved it so much, they are back on board this year in year 2 and are giving me more money to buy more books to serve more families. And in that, it was very important that I could report back to them what we did, how many families were served, how many libraries were involved. So that's a really important piece, because you want the sustainable relationship, right? You want them to come back. So then I said, I want to do geocache for college cash. Well, you have to have a prize, usually, and it can be by institution or by local campaign, but I want to do something statewide. So I went to our Financial Planning Association of Michigan and said, this is a great opportunity to get some brand awareness of your organization, and they provided a $1,000 prize for the geocache for college cash, and I got some other prizes as well. Our State Department of Treasury, they love the idea of being affiliated. They're the 529 plan, right? Michigan Education Trust, getting kids to be able to go off to college. So they also provided an iPad as one of our prizes. So sometimes it's cash, and sometimes it's something else that's really cool and has value. Then I said, you know what? I need someone to help with our kickoff event. So I turned to our good friends at Ally Financial and said, we have a great kickoff event. It's 150, attendees who are here, and let me know what you need. So they came from being a content partner and a promotional partner to also now being an underwriting partner. So I've got 3 legs of my stool in that instance with one partner. But now, looking ahead, we in Michigan are going to be challenged because many of the tools that we relied on for marketing and promotion are not going to be there in the same way that they've been in the past. So I'm going to turn it over to Mel to chat with you a little bit about how they have done fundraising and the bucket approach.
So our campaign in Bloomington is very fortunate. We do not struggle to raise money as of yet. One of the differences in our approach, though, is, and Country Financial is a funder, PNC is a funder, U of I was a funder this year, Extension was. We're asking our partners for sponsorship dollars to put towards our general marketing efforts. So we're not seeking program partners to help fund. I'm not seeking a kickoff partner or a read funder. And basically the freedom that gives us is to then seek out media partnerships to do all of our marketing for us. So we do a large buy with our local newspaper, we do a large buy with all of our TV stations, and we do a large buy with all of our radio stations. We do some web buys with some local newsletters from our Chamber of Commerce. We have a great newsletter in our community called Macaroni Kid. It is a national group, and then they have different cities. So Macaroni Kid is great for families, especially families with young kids. So the flexibility that gives us is great because as a marketing committee, we can then go out to our community and say, we're looking for proposals to help promote Money Smart Week. Here's sort of what we're looking for. If you are proposing that we spend $1,000 with you, we are asking you to match that. So if you're our local NBC affiliate and you want to do 60 on-air promotions with our $5,000, we're asking you to match that. So it's been very successful for us. We have had live on-air radio and TV interviews. We do an insert in our local newspaper, so it's like a 10-page color insert, and that costs about $6,000, but then they're giving us $6,000 of match with their web, mobile, and other print ads. So we're getting a ton for our money, and we also have engaged a couple of our really dedicated partners or dedicated media outlets to serve as partners. So they're coming to planning committees and meetings, and they're really excited about Money Smart Week, and they're looking for stories to tell, and they're looking for ways to engage the partners in media interviews, and that has been such a big win for our campaign because it energizes our partners and people are excited. The community is getting excited. The word of mouth is spreading. So again, it's about knowing your campaign and what works well for you. You know, when you're in Detroit, you have to raise a lot more money.
It's expensive to buy
to
media in
get
Detroit.
media. So for those of you who are in an urban market, you know, think about ways you can engage your media partners now, so that way when you're asking for favors in a couple of months, you have that relationship already built to where you feel comfortable asking for either a match for airtime or a discount, or start with a blank sheet of paper and look for ways to be creative. We are too going to be challenged in Bloomington with the lack of print calendars this year, and I'm curious how our partners will feel if someone will want to put in money just to help with print. So that'll be something we'll have to sort of explore this year and see how the partners feel about it. I'm all for getting rid of the print calendar altogether. It is usually more of a headache for us than a benefit.
Detroit doesn't feel that way. Michigan does not feel that way.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how the partners respond and how they feel about that. I know a lot of people love their print calendar. So yeah, I'm sure we'll have some challenges this year, and we may go to more of that fundraising model where if we have a partner who wants to put in $5,000, maybe we print $5,000 in print calendars. Now, we'd be asking for our printer to match that, but we'll have to see how that unfolds. It's been successful for us, and two other things I want to add. One, if you don't ask for money, you won't get any money. So I know a lot of chairs struggle with how to ask for money. If that's not something that you feel like is a strength of yours, find a fundraising chair. I will say in Bloomington Normal sometimes, and Lori Peterson has been great helping us out with fundraising, sometimes it takes someone calling and saying, I'm calling on behalf of PNC Bank, or I'm calling on behalf of Country Financial. We're looking for sponsors to come in for Money Smart Week. Again, you know your partners in your campaign, so do what works for you. And then I don't know if we have a screenshot or the handout for the sponsor. Joanne has one, and
we sent in quite a few. I'm looking at Alejo. We sent in quite a few examples and templates that we were willing to share about all of these things. And I'm not sure, Corey. Yes.
We're gonna put them up on the website after this in the next
great.
week or so.
So sample sponsorship of sponsorship sheets, sample policy statements, a couple of model programs that are very detailed about working with K-5, and so quite a few things that the three of us were willing to share and put out there for anyone who wants to use them. Before we move to, I want to end with Joanne in just a second, but to extrapolate on what Melissa said, is that working with media is really important, at least in Michigan. And it goes along with the idea of effectively matching your host partners with content partners, just like that matchmaking is important for knowing who your underwriting partners, what their mission is and what their goals are, and then matching the ask, right, for them to support certain things. Working with media is very much about that as well. So over the years, I've developed very strong relationships with Detroit media, who has been very generous, because I have not had marketing dollars. But I know, and it was alluded to today in the Glink session, so that, I know that, my personal finance writer at the Detroit Free Press, I know what's of interest to her. I know what she's looking for. She knows when I call her, she answers the phone, because I'm not going to pitch her something that doesn't make any sense or that doesn't meet her needs. And the same goes with broadcast television and other things. So it's important to kind of know, if you're going to approach the media for the unpaid support, that you know what their priorities are and who their target market is and what demo they're attempting to reach, and then pitch them the right story and make sure that you do select the right talent. You don't want to burn that relationship. I always make sure I provide good interview.
Yeah.
Every time.
If that's not something you're comfortable with, reaching out to the media, I mean, for a lot of people, that's like...
Find someone who is.
Yeah, find a good, someone who's in PR or marketing or media and has that background to help. If they can't serve on your committee as a partner, just someone you can consult with, because that's really, as you go towards more unpaid, free media coverage, if you can cultivate that expertise on your committee, it will, as a chairperson, it will serve you really well.
And we have a Working with Media panel tomorrow. So I'm going to turn back to Joanne to kind of wrap us up on the fundraising component before we open it up to questions in about 2 minutes. But we kind of skipped over the who does the asking and when to ask and how much. So if you could kind of revisit that for us for a couple of minutes.
All right, so how many of you have asked anybody for a sponsorship and you don't know where to set it? You don't want to ask for 500 if they're going to give you 5,000. Yeah, and then you don't want somebody else in the community asking for 50 when you know they can provide 500. That's a really hard nut to crack, and you have to look at who you're asking and how deep their pockets are, but what's in it for them, again, is very important. Some of the major banks have a huge stake in financial education and financial literacy, and they have programs they want to roll out. It's hardly fair for them to own a kickoff breakfast for $150 when there's several smaller players, that all they're gonna give you is $50. We have found in Iowa that there are two thresholds. One is with the community banks, and I'm not talking the major banks like Wells Fargo and Citi and Bank of America, but the community banks, it's about $500 to $600. And they're very willing to do that year after year after year, but you get up much more than that, and it's difficult. And then the other threshold is about $2,000 to $2,500. Now that's for Iowa, it could be different in your place. And those are agencies and banks and credit unions that have the wherewithal, that they're supporting more than one entity, one community, and so forth. And some of our bigger credit unions and some of our bigger banks. And then we have people that have access to grants, and they'll write a grant for you. Then it's kind of up to them. And so we look at that and pair that with what kind of programming we can give, and what they get for that, so that's an easier ask. We still have the smaller communities that will put in $25, but just think about how many times you have to ask for $25 before you get to your whatever you want, rather than working on figuring out who can give you the money to support the program. So very important, and those are policies that you maybe need to think about in arranging your committees, so that everybody knows who's on the same page, so that if Melissa and Kelly and I are all in the same committee and we're getting enthusiastic and we say, well, I could ask Wells Fargo, well, I could ask Bank of America, well, I could ask PNC, and then we think, but I have in mind asking for 500, and she has in mind asking for 100, and she has in mind asking for 2,000.
5,000,
Okay.
10,000.
Yeah, whatever. But, you know, you kind of have to be on the same page there. So develop kind of a policy that you want to move forward.
And I do want to add to that, and I know we're going to open it up for questions, but it's hard to know when everyone's fiscal year is.
Yes.
However, if you are planning to fundraise and you're having a planning committee meeting, you know, kick off in October or November, I would give all your partners a little save the date that we'll be fundraising in January. And we're looking at levels between $100 and $5,000. So if you can budget for that now, we would really appreciate that.
And
Start putting a bug in people's ears, because for me, my planning cycle is we're coming up to the end of our fiscal year, so I'm budgeting now. So I, as a partner, like to know that someone is either going to be asking me for money or asking me for more money. So because if you don't budget for it,
Harder to get.
it's
not there.
nearly impossible to
not
get.
there.
So the more you can plan and prepare for that, the better, especially if you're going to be looking for printing support and other things above and beyond what your partners are normally used to.
Yeah, a lot of organizations are right now in the throes of budgeting, and those budgets will be going to bed in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So, not saying it's too late, but now would be the time to at least make the initial ask, even if you don't know the particulars. I had a conversation recently where she said, yes, you know, I'm working on budgets now. Just send me an overview with you know, your swag, your best guess, so that I can get something written into the budget. Sweet. You know, then we can work out the particulars later.
And once you're in the budget, you might stay there.
Right. So we are now at the point on our agenda where we're going to move to question. Yes, Alejo.
I just want to make an announcement that you have mics in front of you. If you want to use them, you press the red button and you release. A lot of people like to hold it down. Don't hold it down. Release.
Yeah, just press and release. So questions from the room. Yes, in the pink sweater.
Question for you that sell your sponsorships, you know, for the kickoff, that type of thing. Do you promise that from year to year, or do you open it up every year to another potential sponsor?
Right of first refusal.
Yeah, us too. So if you've had it, you have to, I go back to you as a courtesy. Would you like it again next year? If not.
And that might include in kind, too. Yeah, right over here.
To add to your point about grants, I found out last year that there are some organizations that give out grants, they can't give you money.
Right,
I give them a bill,
Right.
and they pay the bill for me.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I have
Right.
a large advertising bill at the TV station.
So they pay the vendor
Send that back
direct.
to them, and they pay the TV station for my advertising. So when
Some-
you're talking to somebody,
yeah.
you might want to know beforehand, or when you're talking to them, if they can't give you money, don't say, thank you, goodbye. maybe they're one of those organizations that can only pay for something.
Right, very good point. Yes, in the tan jacket?
What kind of organizations give grants?
The question is, what kind of organizations give grants?
The Financial Planners of Iowa gave us a grant.
Also, some of the banks, the
Some of the
form that,
banks.
in just my experience, that they have you submit a grant request. It's one example.
Nonprofits have grant-making abilities.
Did you want to add to this or ask a question? Okay.
You might want to ask your planning partners. It really is different for every, Country Financial gives grants, but not for Money Smart Week. So you have to kind of ask around and figure out
What other not-for-profits?
what.
And ask
Yeah.
them if they get their money. They can tell you what companies get grants.
Your library also probably has a grant-making software package that you can put certain things, key them in, and it'll spit out who in your area would give a grant. Because there are private trusts and things that do the same.
Or go to your local foundation.
Your local foundation, community foundation?
We have the Friends of Libraries that give grants.
Okay, next question, Venus.
Okay, actually, Kelly, two questions for you. For the Money Smart Kids Week, when the credit union provided, I guess, did they also provide volunteers? I know I drove the crazy trying to do the Money Smart Kids Week because in Fulton County alone, we had like 34 libraries and our initial campaign covered 13 counties.
Yes.
And so, did they provide volunteers as well?
The answer to that is everything comes out of what the library needs. It's not what we want or what our sponsors want. So the way we do it is we communicate out to Michigan libraries. We use SurveyMonkey, which I turned Joanne onto.
Right, it was awesome.
So we send out a SurveyMonkey to all 450 libraries in Michigan and, say, we're doing this Money Smart Kids Read program. The requirements on you are you register as a partner on the Money Smart Week website. You tell us how many books you would like. You enter your Storytime event into our database because that's important for us to be able to track that activity. And then one of the questions we include in there is, would you be open to volunteers from your local credit union helping you with this event? Because my experience is a lot of children's librarians are very possessive of their story times and they don't want people mucking it up because they've had guest readers that were terrible or, but there are a lot of different ways that your local credit unions could be involved. It really is dependent upon what that local library and that children's librarian specifically is open to. Maybe they don't want a guest reader, but they're willing to have the credit union volunteers or outside volunteers from anywhere help with the craft activity that goes along with it. Or maybe we're willing to have them there to help pass out the books. Or to do what my dream is, that you have a concurrent session that's 30 or 40 minutes for the parents talking about college funding programs or basic credit or debt management or something like that. But for Michigan, we found very much success because the libraries realize we're not trying to take over your programming. Right? We're here to support that, and one of the questions we do ask is, are you willing or are you interested in having outside volunteers?
Question number 2 was, when you said you had work teams instead of committees, give me the example of the agenda that you set or what their margins would be.
So it can be a similar committee structure as to the things that were described here. You could have a content committee. I just don't use the word committee. It would be a content work team. But I also have formed work teams around specific actionable items. So when we decided to do geocache for College Cash, I formed a geocache work team. Who's going to help me reach out to the colleges? I'm one person. Who's interested in that activity? A Money Smart Kids Read work team. Who's going to help me kind of rally the forces in the libraries? So work teams for me is just a shift of mindset, because if someone comes on board to be a part of a work team, they should presume that there's some work involved. It's not just a resume item that they were on this special committee. But I also have found success in having very narrowly focused work teams on specific activities or programs. Does that answer your question? Okay, yes.
At the state level, are there reasons either to or not to form a 501c3 as Money Smart Week?
Really Alejo question.
Yeah,
I think that's a no-no.
That's an Alejo question.
Yeah, I don't think there's a a real desire to do that at this point. We've talked about, is that a possibility to do something like that nationally? I think it's a lot of work. And I don't know that, we haven't cleared anything like that with our legal department just for proprietary reasons, copyright issues with the name and things like that. So we've talked about it in the past, but I don't think it's an option at the moment. But again, maybe somewhere down the future, there is some type of spin-off nonprofit that kind of takes this over away from the Fed or something like that, or in place of the Fed. So, but again, that's a much higher level and longer range topic for now. So I would say no for now.
Another question right here.
I just want to know what the Mompreneur Summit was.
Yes, okay, so last year in Michigan, because I'm a little bit of a control freak, quality control, that's kind of one of my things, and so our staff here at the Money Smart Week team of the Federal Reserve Bank knows that when events are entered in Michigan, they don't touch them. They don't review them, they don't edit them, they don't touch them. I do. So we had 647 events in Michigan during Money Smart Week last year. And as I was reading them, I came across one at a local library, and it was the Mom Biz Coach. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting. What's that? So after Money Smart Week, the dust settled. I started doing a little due diligence and found that she's an author, and she is a professional, schooled small business coach who's chosen to focus her efforts on working with mompreneurs, which was a new term to me. So we this year are planning a Mompreneur Summit. We already have our venue. We already have a number of partners involved. We already have funding lined up. And we are going to do a one-day Mompreneur Summit that focuses on both the business aspects as well as the personal and family aspects of being a mom entrepreneur, an entrepreneur who also happens to be female and a mom. And so in that instance, it was another one of those things where, it's not a lot of money, but we needed to pay for part of the meal. We are charging an entry for that, and there is precedent for doing that, a very nominal fee to at least kind of pay for lunch, because we will be feeding people. But that still left uncovered budget. And so the Mompreneur Summit is something new we're doing, and it's a bit of a spin-off of something that we did last year, which is a kind of an amalgam of something that Iowa did. And we did a small business entrepreneur speed dating event that was 15-minute stations with legal, with accounting, with marketing. And it was very successful, very cool model. People really enjoyed it. But this is going to be a more narrowly defined, focused event specifically for mom entrepreneurs. And we're expecting to have probably about 120 people at that.
Thank you.
And if you're interested, I'm happy to share details. In the back.
Is mompreneur trademarked? Can we use that? Can we borrow that? Can we steal that?
It's a term. I don't think it's trademarked by anyone. Yeah, so have at it. Yeah. I feel like we're ignoring this half of the room and this half of the room. I feel like my backs are to you. So if there are questions on the fringes, anybody, I don't want you to feel ignored. Anything else?
I think I have a question, or at least maybe we can, you talked about your successes in fundraising and some of the programming you've done, but you're all involved with some of the most successful campaigns in the Money Smart Week effort. So maybe you can talk about the results and the fruits of all of this, and some of the successes you had in capacity, in terms of, you already mentioned number of planning teams, but, if you can give a sense of the number of people coming through the programs, attendees, that sort of thing.
Who wants to go first?
Go ahead.
I probably have the smallest campaign, so I'll go first.
Kick us off.
So Blooming to Normal is 100-ish events. And we average about 11 people a session. And that for us is definitely a success. That number used to be lower. Probably 3 or 4 years ago, it was 6 or 7. And Pam Atkinson could talk more about this. And you're staying for wine, right? Are you staying for wine? Yeah.
Staying for networking. We're staying for networking.
Networking. Pam is a big part of our curriculum committee, and one of the again, I see my role as a chairperson as sort of guiding our committees, and one of the action items I asked our curriculum committee to work on a few years ago was reducing our number of classes and increasing our average attendance, because I felt like Bloomington-Normal is not that big of a community, and at some point we were just competing against ourselves for attendance. So they've done some really cool things which have helped our numbers immensely, and one of those is we have sort of this hub format. So every day of the week you sort of know where Money Smart Week programming is happening. One of our community colleges, Heartland Community College, has been a huge supporter of this idea, where they will block classrooms out for us. They have ample parking. Folks can come in and stay for an hour session. There's a short 10-15 minutes break, and then there's another session. So they tripled their attendance this year, and we're seeing really good success with that. Letting people know that you can come, you can stay for more than one class if that appeals to you. But if it's a Friday, we're at Heartland Community College. If it's a Thursday, we might be at the Y. If it's a Wednesday, we might be at Extension. Just to make it, again, making it easier on ourselves logistically, but also giving the community more of a known hub for Money Smart Week on that day. The library has also been a huge partner of ours. So we're really pleased with that. We want to do more of that this year. Again, I'm cool with 100 events. If we can get to 12 or 13 this year for average attendance, we would see that as a success.
There's nothing more frustrating than spending hours planning and having 2 people show up. We have had events where the same exact bank has done the seminar. It's on the same day at the same time, and one time they'll get 65 and the next time they get 6. And they go, "What happened, Joanne?" There's no accounting. It could be the weather. It could be the activities you're going against. Bob has an ideal example with Scout Night. This year he had 160. Last year you had, what, 25, because it was, guess what? There was a parent conference meeting or something.
Or Tigers baseball, or who knows what.
Baseball, and we have a very difficult time at the end of April because it's soccer, it's softball, it's golf, it's tennis, it's track, it's farming. Everything happens at the end of April, so we're going to have a harder time getting people to events. Like Melissa, we consider the success, and remember what Think Blink said this morning, contests. We have so much more success with a contest like geocache, or like Dash for the Stash with our bike bash, or the posters, or the essay contest, and we get our touches that way. This year we patterned our teletown hall with AARP after the West Virginia one, and we had 5,500 people attend for 1 hour on Monday night or Tuesday night by telephone. It was remember, this is not about doing the work, and the hours, so it wasn't a lot of work for us. AARP did all the work. They contacted the people. We suggested speakers, they had the setup, they did the numbers and the tally, and all we had to do was show up. That's a lot bigger success for us than having a seminar at the library, which we've tried, and having 5 people show up. And people feel bad. In the back.
I don't have a question, I just wanted to push the button.
So, if I could try to Michigan, so in Michigan, we are looking at success that has come out of some of these strategic partnerships and strategic nodes and unique programming. When I got involved at the state chair level, Michigan always hovered right around 150 or 200 events, which is very respectable. Primarily in about 12 to 15 counties. We have 83 counties in our state. But through those partnerships, what I have seen, to me, the success is, yes, it's touching as many consumers as possible. improving lives, making a difference, strengthening our communities. It's also the relationships that come out of Money Smart Week. And last year we had 647 events in, was it 51 or 53 counties, and we had about 14,000 consumers that were involved. And people go, wow, that's amazing, that's great. We have 10 million residents, okay? So call me aggressive, but we need to do more. We need to do better. But what I will say is that that is a huge success, and if it feeds the motivation of my partners, and they see me on the media, because media has been very generous in Michigan, and this past year I think we had 4 dedicated feature interviews. We had 5 dedicated columns due to the generosity of our major newspaper. That is huge success because it gives partners a sense of what they do matters, and that they're making a difference, and it brings that additional confidence and a feeling of pride about being involved in something. The other way I measure success is when a partner says to me, as they just did yesterday on the drive here, I was talking with a credit union up in Traverse City, Michigan, and she said, I know what Money Smart Week does because we now have stronger relationships with our local college, with our local community partners, and we're doing things together this fall that would not be happening if it weren't for Money Smart Week. So we measure, or I'm speaking for myself, I measure success, yes, by the data and the numbers and all the badgering and cajoling and begging of people to put in your events and put in your attendance data, because we need to, and that's important. But the other way I measure success is through the relationships and things that come out of Money Smart Week, because Money Smart Week gives people something to focus on. It's a specific time period, specific activity, and like-minded and mission-driven people and organizations all working together toward a common goal and a common initiative. And out of that comes tremendous and powerful relationships that go on indefinitely.
I just wanted to add on to the relationship building. A lot of times you end up working with new organizations during Money Smart Week. With me being a state organization, it's really hard sometimes to get out there in the community and meet these smaller groups. And then once you do an activity that's coordinated by a number of other Money Smart Week partners, those individuals will come back to you and ask you to come to their events throughout the year. And if you participate with them throughout the year, when Money Smart Week rolls around, of course,
It's easy.
So your relationship building is actually a year-round.
And I'm all about capacity building, so that someday if I'm not involved or I'm hit by a bus or whatever, things are happening and the Michigan, residents are better for it. Yes, in the back.
Hi, I have learned that by inviting like the financial editor for the newspaper or the local nonprofit TV or radio station, inviting them to be on the committee guarantees you coverage. I also know that United Way, one of their legs is financial, and typically United Way has a column in the paper, and they have now begun to invite Money Smart Week to have a column.
Excellent. And, you're right. Other partners often will have their, they do their ad buys. And if you can talk to those partners and say, could you include Money Smart Week in the space or the real estate that you've already bought, that's a huge win. I saw a hand over here.
I apologize if I missed it, but would you talk about Kite Fest for a minute?
Oh, sure. Okay, funny story, because everybody, as we go through our groups, and like the credit union wanted to do the read, and so we do it either in credit unions or libraries, and then somebody else wants something else. Well, one year, Wells Fargo, Wells is a tough nut for us to crack. They have huge pockets, and they give a lot of money to United Way for financial capability programming, so we're just kind of an afterthought for them. So one year they'll give us something, the next year they won't. And so 2 years ago, the day after we were done printing our insert, they said, well, can we be on the insert? Gee, I'm really sorry, but we contacted you months ago and you said no, no, and no. And I said, but, we'll have a new program coming out. What do you think about a kite fest? She didn't know. Tell her more. So we arranged for a meeting. We distributed about 1,200 kites. Now, again, we don't like to take on a lot of work, so there just so happens to be kite clubs. You can find them on Facebook pages usually. These kite clubs will do everything for you. They want to educate kids about making kites. Now, Ben Franklin, kites, money, fruit, entertainment.
Oh, right.
Got the train going here. So I found a supplier for kites. We put the Big Money Smart Week logo on it. We developed a survey monkey. We asked the librarians, how many of these programs would you like to do? We asked, we developed a savings curriculum sheet to go with it so the librarians could have a little program. And some of these librarians had like 80 people show up for a kite making. They could do either the kite making and the kite flying, or they could just do the kite making. Wells bought in, and they said, well, we'd like to do that. Can we provide the bankers to do the programs? Absolutely. But caveat, they only wanted to do programs in where their footprint was, which is not quite the entire state. So we had to kind of work it out that everybody could have kites, but only certain people got bankers, and then the librarians had to do it. And then, first come, first serve, when we run out of the kites, because you have to order your supplies before all the tag-alongs want. So we had a sponsor, we had the event planned. Every library, I'm sure, did it a little different. The kids had a blast. The Wells Fargo had a blast. They'll probably be in again.
How did the financial education or the money piece play into building a kite?
To the kites?
Yes.
Okay, well, the kite clubs did all the work. They're the ones that helped the kids build. They're the ones that helped fly it. They're the ones that set up the events. We didn't have to do any of that. We just ordered the kites. Our savings lesson that we sent out talked about Ben Franklin and what he was famous for, being an entrepreneur and family entertainment that's free. Saving your money. Our Kite Fest is named Set to Soar. And so it was all about savings. How do you save? What are little things that little things add up, little bits add up. So it was a Ben Franklin piece.
Yeah, and there are ways to incorporate. We're in the process of working on something that was done in El Paso a few years ago, and it was a run for the money, a 5K. And we're working on that in Michigan. And I said, but not to be rude, I don't really need help with media, like getting media coverage. That's something that I'm pretty good at, right? But so how do we turn a fun run, a 5K fun run, into an educational event? I don't want it to just be a PR ploy, right? So this amazing new partner, Michigan Council for Economic Education, said, well, here's an idea. What if we print off like political lawn signs, and we have little personal finance tidbits on each one of those lawn signs, because he's a runner. And when you're running a 5K, you're looking around, you're reading stuff, you're looking at people's landscaping. And so we're going to line, when we get this all together, we're working on it, so this is something new, another new thing. We're going to have those personal finance lawn signs dotting not the parade route, the run route, and then also, at the wrap up, the kind of celebration at the end, we're probably going to have some information there, and maybe, who knows, we print on the T-shirts, because you're running along, you're looking at the back of the guy in the front of you, so maybe we have something on that. So there are ways to creatively incorporate personal finance tidbits, bite-sized nuggets. Not everyone's going to go to a 60-minute workshop on a Tuesday night. They're not. So we have to go to them where they are. And this would also allow us to reach a new audience. Runners, they're crazy. They'll run in the rain and the sleet and the snow. I'm not a runner. But so the Kite Fest is a cool thing. I'm not sure I want to get into that, but that's another.
It's an easy thing.
Is it?
Well, we had the same experience with runners, except when I went to pitch it at a planning meeting, met with dullness. And I thought it sounded like a great idea. El Paso had a great, or Dallas or whoever it was, and I was like, oh my gosh, I thought this would really go.
It was a dud.
It was
didn't receive it.
So there's a biker sitting there, and she goes, well, why don't we have a bike ride? And then all of a sudden, bing, 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 10 bikers in the room. We had a bike ride. So we did the same exact thing with a Dash for the Stash and a bike ride. And again, the bikers are crazy. They did everything for us. They had a website. They had a collective. They did they wanted T-shirts, and we were able to do it free. Usually they charge, but oh my gosh, can you imagine bikers getting to go on a free ride with a free T-shirt? They were lining up. We had 100 people enter for the first year. We'll do it again.
I don't want to get in between you and networking. It's 5 o'clock, so I'm going to say that we wrap up. Alejo, do you want any closing comments?
No closing comments in particular.